I'm Bet from Bet's Makes and welcome to my studio. You can see some of the projects I've been working on behind me. Today we're going to be making a paper house, and this is such a fun project. I was going to show you one that I made up yesterday. It's so cute. It has gingerbread, it has a little trim across the top, it has a garden back and front, and these are all parts and pieces of what we're going to be making today. First things first, of course, I want to make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so I can bring you other great videos and a lot of fun with those tutorials. So let's get into this little project. First of all, I'm going to give you a list of the supplies that you're going to need for this particular project. And of course you need your Cricut. I have my Air too, you can see just behind me here. You're going to need a cutting pad in order to cut some of the materials for the house. You're going to need a white glue, and I have a good example here. This one is Armor Coat, and it's an all-purpose white glue. And I find this one works really well when I'm gluing cardstock pieces together. So that's an important part. I'm going to need a scraper. I just happen to have my Cricut Scraper, but you can use anything that's going to help make those nice crisp corners. We're going to need a couple of clips. And these ones are spring-loaded, but I did buy these at the dollar store, a whole package of them. So I only need 2 for this particular project. We're going to need a weeding tool, and that's for doing the gingerbread part of the house. As you can see, there's some real good detail in here. So we have to push those holes in. We're also going to need a gel pen for the Cricut machine because we're going to be drawing directly onto the project. As you can see the leaves here, I'm going to draw directly on there, and this one is a gel pen 1.0 black. Now I'm also going to suggest that you get a brush pen or a souffle type gel pen for fixing up and coloring in this part of things right here, especially the leaf in the center. And I found that I had a souffle with jelly roll, but also there is the Sakura brush pens. You can use one of those as well for adding some little embellishments to your project as we go along. And last but not least, you need cardstock. One color for the house. It doesn't matter what color your house is. You may want to have a second piece for the color for the roof because you don't need to make the roof the same color. You're going to need a color for the garden, and then you're going to change from cardstock to bond paper, and we're going to use the bond paper for our gingerbread. Really important. So we have all of those supplies. Let's gather them all together. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and let's get going on this project. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now that we have all our pieces and parts all together, that means you have all your supplies, you have your Cricut machine ready, you have your cutting mats, your scraper tool, your weeder, and your cardstock and paper stock all ready to go. We're going to start making the project in Design Space. So the first thing you want to do is go to https://design.cricut.com. And this happens to be my account, so it is my landing page, and you can see some of my previous projects here. But you can also see my ready-to-make projects that Cricut has put in place. We're going to do a new project. So just click on the plus sign, and you will come up with Design Space. Now, since we're making the paper house, we are going to have to upload some of the templates. So what you need to do is go to betsmakes.com/library, and then go to the password section, log in, and download those templates because you're going to need to upload them into Design Space. Now what I've done is I have preloaded them. So let's go to the upload button here. And you will see that I have uploaded. Now you should have 7 different files. One for the basic house, one for something called Vine, or it's the house decor. It goes on the front door. The vine that gets drawn onto the house. The garden, and that goes at the front and the back. The upper cable. the gingerbread, and then of course the overhanging roof. So you should have all of these pieces, and you should upload those templates. In order to upload, you simply go to upload image. You can browse or drag and drop. I'm going to browse, and the browser should bring up my blog. I have a special one all set up, Paper House Project. It's the easiest way, and these are the files that we will be using. So I could simply click on one of them and then open it and upload. I will simply just cancel this because I already have them uploaded. So let's go back to the upload folder. Now I want to select all 7 of these. All I need to do is just click on each one of them, and it will put a green line all the way around, and you know those are the ones you want. So you need those 7. Now we'll just simply click on the button down here, insert into project. We'll wait a second for everything to load up. Now we have all the pieces have loaded on top of each other, so we have to separate them out. So let's start. Let's get rid of the gable. See, which one is this one? This is moving the house. We'll move it back up in a second. This is the gingerbread, and we have, oh, I want to move. Oh, let's try this again. The roof of the house, the garden, and the vine, the door decor, and finally the house itself. Even though we have all the pieces laid out here, there are some issues when you bring in an SVG file, and that is quite often that the score lines are set up as cut lines. So if we went through and we had our machine take this particular outline of the house, it would do the outline of the house, but it would also cut all the tabs off, all the floors off, and that's not what we want. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we have all the correct score lines on the outline of the house, and then we'll work on the other pieces from there. Now, if you click on the house, you'll notice that it's grouped, and you can tell by looking over at the right-hand side here. It has the cuts for the windows, the cut for the door, then everything else is set up as a cut, and it's all grouped into a cut. Well, we can't do anything with it while it is grouped, so we're going to ungroup it, and then if we can click on, you'll see that you're still grouped. You have to do this a couple of times. Just make sure every time you click on it, if it is still grouped, you're going to have to ungroup it. And we look pretty good on the outside of the house. I don't see another ungroup here. But what we want to do is now change these lines here, 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 and here to score lines. So they're simply scored so that we can fold them. Also, when it brought it in, it is missing a score line that goes from this area to this area on both pieces. So we're going to have to add that. First thing you want to do is change the appropriate lines to score lines. So let's scroll up here just a little bit, and I'm going to click on the door, and right beside the door on the other side here we should be able to find its other line. So let's click through them one at a time and see what we get. So there's the first window, there's the second window, there's the third window and the fourth one, and then the basic outline of the door. And now we have a basic cut line, which is here. Now we're going to have to do this one at a time because you can't always tell where it's going to be. This is the whole house outline. This is a cut on the roof edge, another cut, and look what we have here. We have another group. So if I click on that group, these are our score lines. So we want all of these cut lines into score lines. Now, what you want to do is double check before we click on the group again and make a change for the whole thing to make sure that it is working appropriately. So if I click on this cut or this cut, it's not showing me anything, but it's showing the whole group. So let's ungroup it. So now I can click on individual lines all the way through once it's ungrouped, and I will be able to change those to score lines. So let's start on the left edge here. We want this as a score line. All you have to do is go to the line type at the top, change cut to score. We want this bottom line, change cut to score. Same with this one, cut to score. And notice that we don't want the house cut off, so you need to take this one as well. Cut to score. Again, this line is from cut to score. All looks good. We want this part of the house, we want to change that from cut to score. Looking good so far. And one more to go here. We're going to go cut to score. Now we have all of the pieces of this particular house, except we're going to add 2 score lines. But before we do that, we're going to drag over top all of it, and we are going to group it. Make sure it's in one group, and we're going to click down here, attach. That means that the lines won't come apart. By attaching, it means that when it goes to the Cricut Maker, it will put the score lines with the outline of the house. So let's go to the next part, and let's just click away from the house. We want to add the 2 score lines, one from here to here and one from here to here. So the tool we're going to use is called Shapes, and it's here on the left hand side. We'll click on Shapes, and right down at the bottom is Score Line. Let's just click it once, and we'll just click away from it. You'll see that it added a score line. Now it's going in the wrong direction, so we actually want to rotate it. We can rotate it with a button, which isn't as accurate, or we can come to the top and rotate it, and we want 90 degrees. Type in 90 and we have it in the right direction. Oh. Now all we want to do is move the line into position, but there is an issue. It is way too long, and we know we want 1 3/4 inches long. So all you need to do is just take this and just scroll it right back down to what you want in the center. It should be 1 3/4, and I notice it's 1.625. So let's change that to 1.75. That'll give the right size, and we just want to make sure that it's folding in the right direction. So we want it to go right down to the roof line If I click away, that should look perfect. Okay, we need another one the same size that goes on the opposite side. So all we need to do is select the score line and come over here in the upper right and click on Duplicate. Next thing you need to do is just drag it into position, and we want it down to the corner of the roof, and you can see they're both in position. Now, just as before, you want to select the entire house that's been attached before. We're going to group it again, and that will add the 2 extra lines, but you will also need to reattach it. And this will allow the Cricut to take the score lines and the outline and cut all on the same place. So now we're finished with the house. Let's take a look at now the roof. I'm just going to scroll down here a bit. I'm just going to move it over here so we can see it better. We also have an issue with score lines here as well. So as you'll notice, it's all put together. We are going to ungroup it, and we are going to change 2 lines to score lines. That's this top one. Same thing, change it to score. Down here, change it to score. Now, we also need the middle line as a score. So let's click the middle line, and we are going to change that to a score line as well. Now you'll notice I have two cut lines here, and the reason will be is the cut lines are there so that we can fold it and make a roof from it. Now, as we did with the house, select the whole thing. You want to group it so it moves together, and attach it so that Cricut knows that those score lines belong with the roof. Now let's take another area. Let's start with taking the garden part. Now the garden is black and it'll all end up going on the same cut pad as the house if you leave it the same color. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change its color to green. And that looks pretty good. Now let's take a look at what the garden is made of. It's got a couple of cut lines, and see what that cut line is. We really don't need that. We're going to delete that cut line. And we have another cut line. These could be just stray dots that are there, and we're going to delete it. We have a leaf that seems to be unattached from the rest. So what we want to do is select the leaf and the top part here. So you just hold the shift key down and it'll combine these two. What we want to do is weld those two pieces together. Perfect. So when we select it, you see that the weld results, you have one cut, and that's what we want. We don't want leaves falling off. Now we're going to be creating two of these, so you want to duplicate it. Let's just duplicate, and that means one for the front and one for the back. Now next thing you want to do, because these are fairly large, you actually want to glue them in place right about here, but you'll notice that they are way too long for what you want. Now you can do one of two things. You can crop the end off, or we can just resize it, and we're just going to resize it so it fits within, and just bring it down. Now there's something a little different about this one. We're going to resize it down just as we did before, but you'll notice that there is a door in the way. And this is another little skill. We want to remove the middle part where the door is and have two pieces cut out. So if we take a look right down the middle here, we are going to go over to our shapes. We're going to pick a square, and we'll get a big square. I'll click on the square. We're going to now shape it the same shape as the door. You can't actually resize this, it stays a square. What you need to do is unlock it. So you have to unlock any shape, and then you can size it any way you want. As you can see, I can make it narrow or whatever I need to do. So first thing I want to do is I want to go over to the door, and I want to resize it so it's just in the middle. Just a little bit big. Get it as narrow as the door, or as close as possible. Now I'm going to select the plant and the square we just made. Now last time we did a weld that joined things together. Now we want to split things apart. So you can only select two objects, and the one on top will divide whatever is on the bottom. So we need what we call the slice tool. If you look down at the bottom right, you click on slice. As you can see, now I'm going to drag away the rectangle that we had there, and I can simply delete it because we don't need it anymore. I can drag away my garden piece that has enough room for the door. And finally, the piece that's left over, I can now delete as well. And I don't need the green part either, so I can also delete that. Now, if we were going to place this, you can see that when we glue it on, we will have enough room for the door and the gluing. But there's only one issue I find here. We didn't cut enough to get rid of the bottom. So I'm going to call up another square. So let's go to our shapes. Just want to do it one more time. Bring up a square, unlock it, and this time we don't need anything very big. But what we do need to do is remove that little piece in the center. Just come up a little bit right to there. That looks about right. So now I want to select the garden. I want to select my box, and that is using shift click. Once again, come down here, click on slice. I can get rid of my box, just delete it. I can get rid of the one in the middle, maybe. There it goes. There's one. And I should be able to get rid of the one in the middle there as well. Now I have two pieces. They're still joined together, which is good. And now they will definitely fit over that doorway when we go to glue it on. So that takes care of our garden. I'm just going to move these out of the way. Now we have two pieces left. We have the gable at the top, and we have our cuts for what we want is our gingerbread. Now if I take a look at the gable at the top, if I try to place it in there, you can see whether it's too big. Now, same as we did before, it doesn't matter about the shape inside. We're going to unlock it, and then we're going to start reshaping it the way we want it. Now, I could have it a full gable this way, but that's not exactly what we want. We want to make it a lot smaller. Oh. Okay, move the house out of the way, grab this. So it fits almost to the top like that. That's a good size. Could make it a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower. Let's see if we can move it in that way. It's still a bit wide. Sometimes it's hard to grab onto things if they're there first. So it's a little bit wide, not too bad. Okay, let's just grab it, and I'll just move the house into place. Now that looks not too bad. That looks about the right size. Click away. Let's move the house out of the way. So now we have the top gable. House back. Now we have our gingerbread. And this is a lovely design. It is rather large, and we are going to just change the angle of it so it matches that of the house. Now we're not going to have it all the way up because we have other. This takes a little adjusting because sometimes the designs aren't perfect. I'm going to arrange that and move it to the back because I keep selecting it. Okay, so now I should be able to, there, that's perfect. Now, as you'll see, it's pretty big for what I want. You could put it on because of the overhang of the house. You could leave it this size because what it's going to do is it's going to fit on the overhang down here, but I just want to see how big it was. So it's pretty wide. Once again, you want to unlock it, and we're just going to move it up a bit so I have a good idea of the right size. That looks pretty good for size. We can always trim it if we need to. And the smaller you get it, the harder it is for the machine to actually cut it. Okay, let's move it down here. I'm just going to turn it around and see how it fits on our roof. There, we can actually make it a bit bigger. I'm just going to make it a little taller so it's easier. You will want to just test a little bit. The important part is to get it to measure to here. We know the gable is going to go over top of it anyway. So actually that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to move that other one to the back so I can touch my gable here. I would say that's pretty good for size, especially with the overhang. Alright, so let's bring that over here. We have these two pieces. Now they're the gables and I want them out of a different material, so we're going to have to make sure that they fit on a different mat. So I'm going to color these. So all I have to do is come up where the cut is, and I'll just make it purple. And I'll take this one, come up, change the color to purple. So these would be cut on a different mat because I really want them with a different material. Now we have two more pieces left. This is our door design and it's going to fit here. Now it looks a bit small, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Make it easier for the cut. Door design, so let's make it just a tiny bit bigger, and I'm going to change it to this green so it cuts the same color as the garden, and it'll go on the same mat. Perfect. Last piece, this is our vine. Now right now the vine is set up as a cut, but we don't want it to cut, we want it to draw here. So let's take a look at changing this from cut to draw, and you'll see how it makes a change. Now I find it a bit small, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And give it a good placement. And I want one here in the front of the house, but I also want one here in the back. So we're going to duplicate it. Move it over, get a nice design that way. Now I'm just double checking to make sure everything is working out, see if we've got any mistakes. And oh, right here I see the door will be cut right out. So if we take a look at the door, this line says cut, but we actually want it to be a score line. If you can find that in your group, it's in a group. I don't want to take things out of a group right now, so I just want to show you that you can make adjustments from within a group. So that is going to be a cut. So let's go over here and change that to a score line. There we go. You'll notice that it made the change automatically. Now the house looks pretty good. I want to select the whole house plus the two designs, and the reason I want to do that is I want to attach those designs to the house, and that allows the Cricut now to do scoring, cutting, and drawing all on one mat. Now there's a couple other things we need to think about, and that is the fact that you could have a different color roof than you have a color house. And you'll notice that both of these aren't necessarily filled in with a color. So if I selected this group, it says line type multiple, and it doesn't offer us a color option, and neither will it from here. So you can't actually change the color, but I will show you how to change it when we get to the mat sorting. I want to take one final look to make sure everything is grouped up the way we want it. It appears we have these as purple. They should cut out just fine. We have the house all grouped. We have the roof grouped. and we have cut out the center of the garden, and we have the door knocker. It looks pretty good, but we may have to make changes once we get into the mat sorting. It's just the nature of it. Sometimes you leave something out. So now it's sorting into color. And I know the black one is pretty difficult to see, but this is the house at the top, and here is the roof at the bottom. Now I want my roof a different color, and you may decide that you want a different color as well, but it's on the same mat. So let's make a change. You see the dots here in the corner? Click here, and we're going to click move to another mat. Now I don't want it green for the garden. I don't want it purple, the same color as the gables. I wanted a different color. So let's click on new. Let's pick a yellow. And it doesn't mean you have to make it yellow, but we'll just confirm it. And you'll find a fourth mat has appeared now, and that has the roof color. So I'm just going to move the roof up. You can just drag and drop it up there. That'll save paper. Now let's check each one of these. Now, this is going to be a different kind of paper, but you'll notice that I only have one of each, but I need two of each. So I didn't double up on this. So when we go to do this one, we can either cut it twice or we can go back and make it double. But let's check the other ones first. Now the gardens look pretty good. Got the one with the split, one without the split. And of course the door knocker, that one looks excellent. And it's hard to see the house, but from here it looks pretty darn good. Now because I didn't double up on number 3, I want to now add more of these. Now you wish you could do that, but there is no way to do that. You couldn't move it to another mat, and you don't want to hide the selected. So we're going to have to double back, and we're going to click cancel. This is why you double check everything. So all we need to do is select this one, and we can shift select this one, gives them both, and we're going to duplicate. And that's all there is to it. So let's make sure we save our project. And this is a paper house. And I'm just going to call it new roof. And click save. So everything looks good. Let's go back and let's make it. We will have to move the roof to a new mat again, so let's repeat the process. Select the roof, click on the buttons, move it to another mat, click the plus sign, pick a color and confirm, and then just move it towards the top. I do want to conserve paper at all times. Now, as I mentioned before, we know that score, draw, and cut for the house. We know that we have cuts here. But we also know with the doubling of this one, but we want everything on a different kind of paper for this particular mat. And I'll show you how to do that as we go through. And the last one, of course, is a score and cut for the roof. So it looks like we're all ready. So let's go over here and click continue. It's going to select your machine here. So now that we have all the mats sorted, let's click on number 1 here. This is the first thing that's going to cut. If I hover over here, you'll notice that it comes up with the design and what it looks like, and it's score, draw, cut. We are going to start with the type of cardstock that you have chosen for your project. So in my case, I've done a medium cardstock. Now because I'm using my maker, it is asking me to put in my black pen. Now I am using a gel Cricut pen that is a 1.0 and my scoring wheel. So that means that I will be scoring and cutting this particular part of the project. Next, if I click on the cut, the next mat comes up. It will tell me exactly to load a fine point blade. Now I'm going to skip over number 3 for a second. I'm going to go to number 4, and once again it's a score and a cut, so it's asking for the scoring wheel or the scorer depending on your machine, and then it will flip over to the cutting blade. So those are those two. Now if I want to come back here to number 3 and I want to use a different material, it's set to cardstock. The cardstock. Okay, let's click up on the cardstock. Now I want to tell it I want to change this one to copy paper. And once again it tells me to load the fine point blade in clamp B, and it will cut exactly what I had asked for. So that's all there is to it. Now if you cut this one, you want to go back and make another house under number 1, you'll notice it's changed to copy paper. I click on the words, the copy paper, I can go back to my medium. So you are able to change the different types of paper for each cut that you do. So now your job is to cut each part out, and then we'll come back and we will assemble the house. Alright, now you should have everything off from your Cricut and all the pieces. I've cut a couple of them. So I'm going to work on the yellow house, even though I made a little smudge here, but I'm going to be able to make some changes to that. And with the house, you want to make sure that you can then take your house and put it into a design like this. As you can see, they're the same size. But before we get going, all I want to do is I want to make the creases where we need the creases. That is the first thing, and then we're going to add the garden. So let's start by flipping it over, and let's get some of the creases going. I'm going to flip them right back down. This is the easy part. Lots of folding. Simply crease, and you'll have a crease here as well. Crease as well as I wanted it to, but let's just get it in there. Piece of the house here needs to be folded. That out. Remember, we have put our own crease in here, so let's just crease that, and the same on this one. We added our own crease. There we go. We have all the pieces folded over. Last one to be creased, of course, is the door. So I have to open that door. Let's just open it up. Perfect. Basically what we're ready to do now is start adorning the house. We want to add the garden. Now for me, I have the garden that goes here. I cut mine a little larger so you would be able to see it. As you can see, I can add the garden to here, but I'm going to have a little extra piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors. I'm just going to cut the extra off. There. I'm going to be gluing this part of the garden here. And then we want to glue to either side here of the garden. Now I don't want to lose my little door decoration. Now because I printed it larger, I am going to add just 2 pieces here. So let's just cut that. If you resized yours, you will not have to do any cutting. That looks pretty good. And we want to add 2 pieces here. So let's just cut this. Just move over to the side. So we're going to be gluing those on, and that's our next step. Once we have those glued on, what we're going to do is I'm going to fix this up. We're going to color it in. We can use our brush pen. In this case, I have a brush pen that's green. It's a Sakura. I'm just going to add a little bit to it because it's a little messy in here. Hopefully yours will turn out a little better than mine did, but we can make corrections with it. Now that was a green brush pen, but you can add other colors to it as well. If I decide I want to add a little orange to it, I can do so as well. That might tidy it up a bit, just to give it some decorative look. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so that's the brush pen. Now let's glue these pieces on. Now I don't want to glue the whole thing down. I just want to add glue across here, here, and here all by itself. And I made my door knocker a little bit small, but that's okay. You will have to remove the center piece so that it does come through. Yours may be a little larger, so we're going to add a little glue here as well. And I have a little method on how I like to do the glue. Just open up my glue here. Okay, so let's do some little bit of gluing now. So I'm just going to add glue here. Now it comes out pretty thick, so I just want a little dab, and then I'm going to spread it with my fingers. And it will dry clear, so that's the important part. So you can just simply spread it along. It doesn't matter if you have extra on your hands, you can always wipe it off before it gets dry. And I quite often just add some to the bottom at the same time because we are going to be gluing the little edges. So get my little edge here and here. And across here, if I have a little extra, I'll just add it here. See, I want to get it a little tacky before I put anything down. Just add some more along the bottom edge here. Here it looks good. I'm not going to touch the roof line yet. And now we can add our pieces. This one I'm going to push right against here, just above the window. Looks pretty darn good. And the other small piece here, opposite. It will go here. I have my little fellow here for the door knocker. I'll just push him into place. Is. Those seem to be glued down pretty nicely, and then I have my larger piece that's going to go across here. I think what I'll do, because I have a little smudge mark there, put my garden in place. Try to get as close to the bottom as you can. Now it's pretty tacky, which is perfect because I put some here, here, and here, because the next part of the assembly of the house is to put in the bottom. Now what I found was when you go to glue, that if you start with one side, just like this, and get it into place, you want to try and line it up. Best as possible. Then add the next piece, and then finally the last piece. And I know it's a little difficult for it to stay down the way you want it to. I'm having trouble with this little corner here. Line it up best as possible. Best to start with just one corner. Tacky enough, I can just move it, but I don't want it to move too far. I put just a thin line of glue. Okay, that one looks pretty good. So now I want to put on the back, so you have to slide that in. And try to line it up the best as possible. So I try to pinch mine together so it stays. Put it in and use the back side of my tool here. Just rub it down. Now the tough part is going to be when you start to put on the side of the house and this last piece, because you have to get some glue on the side of the house at the same time you're gluing down the other piece. So this time I'm just going to put a little bit on my fingers, and I see I've got black ink on my fingers now. So let's just rub, I hope you can see this, rub a little bit of glue here, because you're going to be sealing the house and putting the floor finish at the same time. So I'm going to just tuck it in and tuck this in. Let me just move this out of the way. So I've got the house and the floor. I'm just going to hold it for a second or two so it dries enough so that we can take care of the rest of the house. Just cut it apart. Nope, it's looking pretty good. So now we'll just let that dry for a second or two. So now we're almost ready to do the house roof. Now first of all, we're going to glue this roof together. So we're going to start with the two edges here. We're going to fold this down, and then we're going to add the next flaps in this way. And we'll end up holding it together so that the house is together, so it'll end up similar to this, where I've glued these two down and then you glue this flap in next. See, the side of my house is coming apart here, so let's just hold on to it for a few seconds. I say I never worry about having extra glue. It does dry clear and you can barely see the extra glue here. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing is to take a finger of glue, go up this side, along here, and then down this side. So you go from here, here, and here, and then we're going to glue that in place. So once again, I'm going to add a little glue to my finger, and then I'm going to spread it quite thinly. There we go. I actually use two fingers to make sure. So I just take this piece, rub a little bit here, and we're going to rub a little bit here. This will dry momentarily. It'll get very tacky. Looks pretty good. Take my fingers clean. I'm touching it. So now let's just slide this one in place. Try to get it to match as closely as possible. Same on the back side. There, that's pretty tacky. Alright. Now the next part's a little more difficult because you can't really get your fingers in there. But we can add a little glue to both these sides. So we'll add a little bit on this side and a little bit here. And I am going to wipe my fingers off again. Now just fold these in, and you're going to fold that down at the same time. Just try and push it right in. And we have the first part of our house complete. We just have to let this dry. I'm just going to set it aside for a second. So it's looking pretty good. Not too sure about what we're going to do for the black pieces, but they will disappear when we put the gable on. Just a marked house. So now we have the overhang roof. And this is an important part. You have to fold these ones in and burnish them. Move this extra house out of the way. And fold it in and burnish it. Now the next fold we have is we're going to bring this two pieces together. Now you'll notice that these are sticking out at the top, but you want to fold them down and you want to burnish all the way across. That's going to be an important piece of it, because if you don't do that, it's not going to go together properly. What's going to happen is these little flaps are going to be glued in right here in the top, and then this piece is going to be glued on top of that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to start by gluing these two pieces down into here. So once again, I'm going to put a little glue on my finger. Yes. Right here. And right here. Make sure I have enough on there. I want you to glue it down right to the crease and to the crease. So now it looks something like this. Now I better hold it in place because it's not going to stay there unless I do. Now the next piece we're going to glue is this flap on each side is going to be glued up into the house roof. So this is the overhang roof. Hold it down for a few more seconds. Now I'm going to add a little more glue. Don't you need a lot. I'm going to glue this edge and this edge together. Just wipe my fingers off here. I'm just going to hold it, and this is where I want you to use the clamps, because this is sometimes where it falls apart. I'm just going to clamp them together. And we'll just let it dry like that with the two clamps in place. So the last part of our puzzle, while this is drying, is to be able to take the gables. Now I've made these larger than what we're going to be using. You can pull off your paper. I used a design paper for this one, but it's the weeding that becomes important. Now I find it easier to weed right on the mat, so you're not struggling with the paper. And if you find you're sticking to the mat, one of the ways you can handle that is, and just add the sheet that comes with it so you can lean on it. And then we're going to weed the pieces out. Now I'm just going to show you my weeding process, and then we can add the embellishments to the house. So it's a lot easier when you're weeding on the mat. Be careful not to poke the mat too hard. So it just gets the pieces out. As you can see, it was a lot easier to do that. And then I can just pull this piece, and this is the gable that would fit on the house. Now this one's a little larger than what we want, but the whole idea is then you can fit the gable on the house. Now we can do the same thing. The next gable, I just pull the pieces out. Now yours is going to be a lot smaller than this. And just pull these two pieces out. It's a lot easier weeding this way. A lot of people pull it right off, and then you're stuck trying to get it off. So now we've got two pieces. The hardest part is getting the little pieces out of the gingerbread. But by doing it right on the mat, you'll find it's much simpler. You can pull it. And I don't care if it sticks to the mat afterwards, I'm just going to move it out of the way. This way you won't lose all the fine detail that is inside of these. Now you have a couple of them to do, but you notice I have some fine detail that's in here, and you can't get to it if you take it off. You'll end up ripping it like I did in my previous one. Get that hard out. There we go. You can see it's looking really nice. Just sort of repeat that through. A lot easier to see this way as well. And I'll show you the other way. Sometimes it will come out, but not that often. So we can weed through this one. But if I took this one, for example, our second one, sometimes you can weed it this way, but it doesn't always work. So far I've been lucky, I've got most of it. Have to look to see if I've lost anything, and no, I haven't. Actually, that one worked perfectly. It's a lot larger. You're going to be working in sizes more this size, so it's a lot smaller. So let me just pull the rest of this off. But those are two examples of how you can do some weeding. And I'll just move my mat out of the way. See how our roof is doing. Garden looks pretty good. It's starting to look really nice. Now with the roof, I'm just going to remove my clamps. The roof is actually a floating roof that's going to sit over top. Now you can decide how far you want it to go in and how far you want it to overhang on either side. I try to get it about the center, and I only glue the top part up here. So let's get out our bottle of glue. A little bit on both sides. Get my fingers in there as usual. Good glue. Doesn't have to be perfect. And off of that. Now let's try and get this as centered as possible. You want a little more overhang on the front than the back. There we go. And our door opens. We have our design, and this will just take a few seconds to dry. So what you want to do next, and we could add our gingerbread all the way. I'm actually going to use the one I weeded here. I'm going to cut this one because I did not measure this one, but the one you have is pretty close to the measurement that you want. Once again, I want a little glue. I'm going to glue it all along the red here. Don't need a lot of glue. I am going to line mine up. There we go. Looks really cute. Now the next piece we're going to hang down here is going to be a little bit shorter, and the reason it's going to be shorter is that we can double up in here. Double up. Actually, that will go right to the edge with this one as well. We'll come right to here. Probably a little bigger than I normally would have had, but since a little extra here, I'm going to glue it down. We'll just place it in. There we go. Now since I didn't have my gable is obviously not going to fit and I didn't cut another one. I am going to then maybe take some of the hearts that we had left over and just place one of the hearts across the top. I could paint it another color, so let's just add a little color to it. Let's maybe a little orange. Just paint it a little bit just to give it some contrast. Add a little more glue. And then I will add this as my gable. So here we are. Here's our finished product. We have the design of the vine, we have the garden, we have the door knocker, we have an open door. We didn't put a design on the back, but you could do so. You could add more gabling on the back if you wished. But there's our finished design. Here's one that I had done before. They are so cute. You could do so many different colors to make a village. So I really hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. So that's it for today's project. I hope you had a lot of fun making it. I know getting into the details sometimes, especially with the gingerbread, that creates a few challenges trying to get it right. I know I had to print so many of these when I was practicing this particular item, especially the low-hanging part with the heart at the bottom. If you had to cut yours off like I did on part of my project, then that's no harm. You can use any type of design you want on that low-hanging roof. So you now have a gorgeous looking house with a nice vine, a great garden, and a lot of beautiful gingerbread with an overhanging roof. I really hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget, last thing, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I believe it's on this side. And don't forget, you can buy your supplies anywhere: Michael's, Joann's, Amazon, Craft Stash. You will find all of that material and listing and links in the description below. And one last thing, don't forget to subscribe to my resources. So it's betsmakes.com/library. Just go there, sign up, go into the resource library. You can download the template for this project and many others. So until next time, happy crafting.